Dealings with the Dead, number 29. The true value of an enlightened conscience may be duly estimated by him who has enjoyed the luxury of traveling in the dark, with the assistance of a lantern, without a candle. A man who has a very strong sense of duty, and very little common sense, is apt to be a very troublesome fellow, for he is likely to unite the stupidity of a donkey with the obstinacy of a mule. Yet such there are, and however inconvenient individually, the evil is immeasurably increased when they become gregarious and form a party for any purpose whatever. Such conscious parties have existed in every age and nation. A few individuals of higher intelligence, dissatisfied with their civil, political, military, religious, or literary importance, and fatally bent upon distinction, are necessary to elevate some enormous green cheese high in the firmament, and persuade their followers that it is neither more or less than the moon at full. Herod was the great director of that conscious party that believed it to be their bounden duty to murder all the little children of Judea under a certain age. Nowadays, it's more about them not being of a certain ethnic group, right? Neither one was right, of course. The terrible sacrifice on St. Bartholomew's Eve was conducted by a conscious party. The burnings and starvings in Bloody Mary's reign were planned and executed by a conscious party. In no country has it been so very rampant as in Ireland from the days of Heremon and King Olam Fodla to the present hour. Almost every reader is aware how conscientiously Archbishop Sharp was murdered in the presence of his daughter in Scotland. The widows of Hindostan, when they attempt to escape from the funeral pile on which late husbands are burning, are driven back into the flames by a conscious party. It is well known that certain inhabitants of India deposit their aged and decrepit parents upon the very margin of the river, that the rising waters may bear them away. This is not the act of a few individuals, but the common practice, clearly indicating the existence of a conscious party, who undoubtedly believe they are acting in a most filial and dutiful manner, and doing the very best thing in the world for all parties. Infanticide is tolerated in China. Nowadays, because of abortion, they find out that there's a female to be born all across the world. They're more likely to kill it, especially in secular countries. The rate's even higher there. Very little account is made of female babies there, in China. This has been doubted and denied. Doubt and denial are of no use. There is a conscious party there who believe it to be their duty to their male babies to drown the females, unless they are pretty, and then they have a chance for life in being sold for concubines. Among the numerous and best modern authorities on this point is Gutzlaff, whose voyages along the coast of China were published in London, 1834. At the beach of Amoy, says he, we were shocked at the spectacle of a pretty newborn babe, which shortly before had been killed. We asked some of the bystanders what this meant. They answered with indifference, it is only a girl. On page 174, Gutzlaff remarks, it is a general custom among them to drown a large proportion of their newborn female children. This unnatural crime is so common that it is perpetuated without any feeling, and even in a laughing mood. To ask a man of distinction whether he has daughters is a mark of great rudeness. Earl, in his Narrative of New Zealand, London, 1832, states that the practice existed there. The insurrection of Shays in the Commonwealth in 17 1787 was a matter of conscience, beyond all doubt. He and many of his associates believed themselves a conscious party. After General Lincoln had suppressed the rebellion, great leniency was shown to the prisoners. Not an individual was executed, and Shays, who died in 1825 at the age of 85, was even pensioned in his old age for his prior services in the Revolution. The revolt of the Pennsylvania line in 1781 was, I admit, less an affair of the conscience than of the stomach and bowels, for the poor fellows were nearly starved to death. The insurrection under Fries, commonly called the Whiskey Rebellion in western Pennsylvania in 1792, was a different affair. The conscious party resolved to drink nothing but untaxed whiskey. And even after this point, there was people who thought of such a thing as medicinal whiskey, when alcoholic beverages are not needed for any medicine. And it's detrimental to any medicinal use. But anyways, they conscientiously believed the flavor to be utterly ruined by the excise. It is certain that when General Washington moved against the rebels, there was conscience enough among them to make cowards of them all, for they scattered in all directions. A conscious party existed. In the early settlement of our country, when our pious ancestors, having fled to the howling wilderness, that they might enjoy liberty of thought on religious subjects, began to hang the poor Quakers for the glory of God. Never before had there been such a conscious party in Massachusetts as from 1689 to 1693. It was then Cotton Mather exclaimed from the pulpit that witchcraft was the most nefandous high treason against the majesty on high. Well, true or not, it's not really the business to enforce it. Like, for example, in an Islamic state, they do not enforce, that sort of thing. I don't mean what the news calls an Islamic state. I mean what the Quran and the Hadith do. It was then that he satisfied himself by repeated trials that devils were skilled in Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. It was then that they hanged old women for riding on broomsticks through the air, a mode of conveyance which Lord Mansfield declared long after to be perfectly lawful for all who preferred that mode of equitation. A conscious party has recently appeared in this country, which it is not easy to describe. Every other party seems to have contributed to its formation. It is a sort of political mosaic made of tag, rag, and bobtail. Some of the prominent members of this party were Whigs but yesterday, and yet they have put forth all their energies to elect as president a man whom they and all other Whigs have hitherto opposed and denounced, and who, it was manifest from the beginning, could not possibly be elected. This man has been accounted by the Whigs a political charlatan, and all that he has done to obtain the support of this conscious party, such of them, at least, as were once Whigs, is to avow certain sentiments on the subject of slavery, the very contrary of those which he has hitherto maintained most openly and zealously. No grave and reflecting Whig puts any more confidence in the promises of this political spin-button than he would put in the words of Nicholas Machiavelli. Nor could this candidate do more to check the progress of slavery than every honest Whig believes will be done by the candidate of their party, who certainly resembles Washington in three particulars. He is himself a slaveholder, he is an honest man, and he wears the same political phylactery. I will be the president of the people, not of a party. And more than ever, that is the issue, right? All this nonsense about political party when, the best leaders are actually not terribly supported by the rest of their party, because the rest of their party, just like the other party, are, they're bought off by the corporations. And in consideration of the limit of power, neither of these candidates can do more than the other, for the object in view if they were equally honest, which nobody dreams of unless he dreams in Sleepy Hollow. If there had been an anti-cholera party, Van Buren might have commanded suffrages as sensibly by pledging himself to do all in his power to prevent its extension. The remaining candidate, it is agreed, would, if elected, have turned the hopes, one and all, of both Whig and conscious parties topsy-turvy. His election, it is clear, was made more probable by every vote given by a Whig to that candidate, whose election was clearly impossible. These irregular Whigs have therefore spent their ammunition as profitably as the old Covenanter spent his, who fired a horse pistol against the walls of Stirling Castle. Such is the conscious party. When I refer to the universal consent of the Whigs during the former canvass for Martin Van Buren, that he was politically the very devil incarnate, and in making a selection of those who were the loudest and longest and the most vehement of his antagonists, find them to be the very leaders of the present movement in his favor, I am reminded of Peter Pindar's pleasant story of the chambermaid and the spider, and not having my copy of Peter at hand, I will endeavor to relate the tale in prose as well as I am able. A chambermaid in going her rounds observed an enormous spider, black and bloated, so far from his hole of refuge, that lifting her broom, she exclaimed, "Now, you ugly brute, I have you. You are such a sly, cunning knave, and have such a happy, non-committal way with you, that I never have been able to catch you before. For the moment I raised my broom, you were out of sight, forsooth, and perfectly safe in that kinderhook of a hole of yours. But now prepare yourself, for your hour is come." The spider turned every one of his 8 eyes down upon the chambermaid, and extending its 2 forelegs in a beseeching manner, calmly replied, "Strike, peerless maid, but hear me. I have given you infinite trouble, and have been a very bad fellow, I admit, crafty and cruel. I have been an unmitigated oppressor of flies and all inferior insects. I have sucked their blood and lived upon their marrow. But now my conscience has awakened, and I am in favor of letting flies go free. It is not in quest of flies that I am here, sweet maid." And then he seemed perfectly convulsed. "I am changed at heart, and become a new spider. Pardon me for speaking the truth. My only object in being here is, from this elevated spot, to survey your incomparable charms." The chambermaid lowered her broom and gently said, as she walked away, "Well, a spider is not such a horrid creature after all." I may be thought in these remarks to have offended against the dictum Nisitor ultra crepidam. Surely I am not guilty. My dealings are with the dead. Perhaps I am mistaken. The conscious party may not be dead. Perhaps I am mistaken. But cataleptic, destined to rise again, to fall more feebly than before.